now it's perspective.
Online at kvnutalk.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. A 60-year-old Logan man has been sentenced to jail for breaking into a neighbor's apartment and asking to have sex. Jeffrey Wood was ordered to serve more than 4 months in jail after blaming his actions on his religious upbringing. Wood was sentenced Monday morning in First District Court. He had previously accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to criminal trespass, stalking, and possession or use of a controlled substance, all Class A misdemeanors. On June 10th, Logan City police officers were called to a reported burglary. The victim explained how he had woke up to find Wood in his bedroom wanting to have sex with him. Wood reportedly left the apartment after the victim threatened him. 2 days later, officers received another report of a prowler at the same apartment building near 890 Canyon Road. The complainant was the first victim's roommate. She said Wood was pacing outside the apartment and looking in the windows. Police detained and questioned Wood before arresting him. He claimed his neighbors often called him to come over. During Monday's sentencing, Wood again told the court that the victims had been asking him over. He said they would play loud music that had lyrics inviting him to engage in sexual activity with them. He later acknowledged, though, that he was under the influence of methamphetamines at the same time. Judge Spencer Walsh noted that Wood had a history of trying to break into the victim's apartment, drug use, and trespassing. He said the defendant's choices to get high on meth had led to these dire consequences. Judge Walsh ordered Wood to immediately be taken to jail and begin serving 147 days, followed by 48 months probation. He expressed hope that this would send a clear message that Wood's addiction was threatening the safety of the public. KVNU News Time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight. Mostly clear skies, overnight low in the mid-50s. Sunny and hot next few days, mid-90s each day. It's been to 92. Right now it's 91 at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They want to understand your family, your job, hobbies, and goals to earn your long-term financial trust. Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. 3 people are dead, 2 of them children, after an auto pedestrian crash in a Provo neighborhood Monday morning. The incident happened around 8 a.m. in the area of 800 East, 700 North in Provo. According to police, 2 elementary school-age siblings were walking on the sidewalk when a white SUV left the roadway and struck them both. In a statement, the Provo Police Department wrote that for unknown reasons, the vehicle crossed the eastbound lanes and struck a 9-year-old girl and her 10-year-old brother on the sidewalk. The car apparently did not stop after hitting the brother and sister, and it ended up rupturing gas lines as it crashed into a home. Crews with Dominion Energy were called to the scene to repair the damaged lines. Police said there is an investigation underway into whether the driver, identified as 59-year-old Darren Albertson of Provo, had a medical condition that may have contributed to the crash. The Provo School District is coordinating grief counseling services for those affected at Wasatch Elementary, where the children had just begun the new school year. Roads in the area were closed throughout the morning as police continued their investigation. And firefighters were on the scene of an incident in Kaysville through this morning, working to extinguish hotspots from a hay fire. According to a statement from the Kaysville Fire Department, crews responded to a call just before 1 a.m. of a blaze that broke out in a camping trailer that was parked next to a barn. While crews were responding, the caller reported that the fire had spread into the barn and started the hay on fire. And the Kaysville team received support from Layton City Fire Department, Farmington Fire Department, and the Hill Air Force Base fire and emergency responders and emergency services, that is. Responders were able to take down the camper fire quickly. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
News and current events. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Are you interested in increasing your leadership skills? Whether it's in your business, community, or just life in general, the Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce invites you to join their upcoming Leadership Institute series. You'll spend one Friday a month from September to May learning advanced leadership principles from local experts, visiting local world-class organizations, exploring key community issues and local government, and it even includes a day on Capitol Hill. Take advantage and improve your leadership skills. Visit cashchamber.com for more information.
This is Police Chief Gary Jensen from Logan City Police Department. A number of scams are occurring throughout our city and county. These scams are highly emotional and demand immediacy that you pay, and you pay now. They will say they are from the IRS, the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, utility companies, medical facilities, or even romance scams. Slow down and diffuse by asking questions. Be careful. Hang up the phone call is the best thing that you can do, and don't become a victim.
This Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. She doesn't know that yet. All she knows is that she went to justserve.org and volunteered an hour of her time. Browsing through dozens of service opportunities in her community, April decided to spend her Tuesday evening serving dinner to mothers and their children at a transitional house. She doesn't know she'll be serving a particular mother and daughter who will be spending their first night in this home. April doesn't know that the hot meal she'll serve is the first this mother and daughter will have had in a week, or that the simple smile she'll offer as she serves them will help them realize that things are going to be all right. Which is why this Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org. JustServe.org is provided as a service by The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Feels like Tuesday. Tuesday has no feel.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People, hour 2 of today's show. It is a beautiful Thursday, August 30th. Tuesday, August 30th. It's been one of those weeks already for me. Big news and another first in Utah politics today. We'll talk about this here just in a bit. Going to check back in with Cache County Auditor Jess Bradfield, explaining different types of audits that occur within the county and what recent audits reveal. But, the controversy around audits is always strange to me. The public is never mad about them. I don't think I've ever seen the legislature, independent auditors, the governor's office, counties or cities conduct an audit and hear taxpayers go, why? No, people love them. They're revealing, they increase transparency, they increase accountability. They also sometimes tell us things that we don't know that save a lot of money and time when it comes to processes, etc. So regular auditing is something I'm a big supporter of, and Utah is pretty good at it, especially with our current state auditor. Here at the county level, they have been far less frequent over the last 20, 30 years than they have been the last two, and that is thanks almost entirely to supportive state auditor John Dougal and the new county auditor, county clerk and auditor, Jess Bradfield. But there is some confusion as to what audits can and can't be done at the county level, at the state level, and there are rules. The legislature has designed kind of a roadmap for this, so we'll talk about that in a bit. something that was addressed by a recent conversation we had with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield. But the big political news today, and again, another first here in Utah politics, a write-in campaign has been, now a write-in campaign isn't a first, but a write-in campaign by a state lawmaker is. They're not often successful. They're long shots. They're usually by dark horse candidates that no one's ever heard of before. This is the first time in my lifetime that a well-known, in his district at least, and very popular former Republican lawmaker who lost his reelection bid in the primary is going to be mounting a write-in campaign against the person he lost to. Representative Stephen Handy, long time, he's been in the legislature, was in the legislature, well, still is up until the end of the year for sure, but he's serving his final term. He lost his primary in the spring to a man named Trevor Lee, a newcomer to politics. This happened at the Davis County Republican Convention, and people were critical of Representative Handy for not collecting signatures, for leaving it up to county delegates to decide. Why were they critical? Well, just after that primary took place, literally days after that primary took place, in which Trevor Lee was successful at convincing county delegates, at least, to vote for him over incumbent Representative Steve Handy, Trevor Lee went on a conservative podcast and went on a bit of a homophobic and anti-trans rant. The governor expressed disappointment. Senator Todd Weiler, longtime Republican, former vice chair of the Utah Republican Party, basically suggested at the time that Lee was unfit for office and that Stephen Handy should mount a write-in campaign. Today, Handy made it official. He will launch a write-in campaign to keep his seat in the Utah Legislature. It's been rumored for a long time, but Handy's never confirmed it. And several lawmakers, peers, and colleagues of Steve Handy's have asked him to outright on social media and in interviews to try and stop this Trevor Lee person from becoming a representative in Utah based on some of his other behavior and those initial remarks. Homophobic remarks on a podcast days after the primary, after he won. So Handy has officially filed the campaign paperwork and held a news conference this afternoon in Layton, and the Salt Lake Tribune reported a bit on that. They wrote that this is obviously considered a long shot, but this is a situation where the county delegates ousted Handy, but Handy is very popular with rank-and-file registered Republicans that are less to the right than county delegates in Davis County are very far right. So it is possible that he could pull this off. So, again, Handy didn't gather signatures, so when he lost the primary, he was done. And only 92 delegates weighed in on that race. 59 cast a ballot for Lee, and that was the end of it. So there are more than 18,000 registered Republicans, though, in House District 16 in Davis County. So Handy could do it. Everyone's looking around now to see if other incumbents looking for a renomination at the Davis County Convention, where the culture war issues dominated. Utah issues weren't even discussed at that Davis County Convention in the spring. It was really weird. But a lot of incumbents have received challengers from their political right, the Salt Lake Tribune reports. State Representative Ray Ward from Bountiful, a Republican from Bountiful, would have been ousted just like Steve Handy by a man named Lyle Mason, but Ward gathered signatures, so he'll still be on the ballot, and being popular with rank-and-file registered Republicans, he'll win that race. So, again, it's kind of eliminating that divide between delegates and rank-and-file Republicans. When a decision is made in the county convention or state convention, sometimes a decision. Remember years ago, Governor Herbert was extremely popular with registered Republican voters here in Utah to his very last day in office. But there was a convention, a state convention, in which delegates actually gave him the boot. Had he not had a second route to the ballot, he wouldn't have been governor anymore. He went on to be governor for another 6 years. And a popular one again. So 8 years, sorry. Anyway, so it's kind of strange. Damon Cann, friend of the show and Utah State University political scientist, is quoted in the Salt Lake Tribune story. He said, a successful write-in campaign is a long shot, requires a massive amount of effort and a little bit of luck. But, Cann said, it would take a very high-profile campaign, and this has, well, exactly that going for it. Trevor Lee and his controversial comments, which I'm sure there will be more of heading forward, and Handy is a very popular Republican that was well-liked in his district by regular voters. He has name recognition. His status as incumbent gives him the advantage there. And then redistricting, recent redistricting could have an impact as well. The boundaries of House District 16 shifted a bit, just a bit, but it might be enough to make a difference in this. Most of the district remained the same, but they added there's about 3,000 registered voters who are new to the district, and so they may not have gotten to know Handy before being in a different district until last fall. So, that could play a part in this. Damon Cann said USU political science professor that Utah is what political scientists refer to as a voter intent state, which means elected officials have a lot of forgiveness and leeway when they evaluate their ballot. Meaning, that's a nice way to say we like our incumbents. So with Handy being seen as the incumbent, the challenge here is you've got to get people to actually write your name. They don't just see your name, recognize it, check a box. They've actually got to write your name down. So that's why a write-in campaign is so difficult. And if someone misspells your name or just lists a last name or writes Stephen, Stephen, things like that, then the vote it will still count because the voter intent is obvious. So that's going for Handy as well, but you still got to get people to do it. So as for Trevor Lee, the Davis County nominee, courtesy of Davis County Republican delegates at least, as again, he's already been the subject of some controversy. Shortly after winning the nomination, used a homophobic slur and made some transgender comments on a conservative podcast. They were talking about Governor Cox's veto of the transgender athlete ban bill. And Lee said in reaction to the news today that he was unconcerned about Handy's reentry into the race. He said his intention, quote, "My intention is on how I'm elected. I can help my constituents and all of Utah keep more money in their pockets." Didn't respond directly to the controversy and the reason for Handy mounting the lighting campaign. One thing, though, some insider stuff. The Salt Lake Tribune doesn't mention this. I think it's relevant, though. Something, when it comes to this insider play that can sometimes happen here in Utah politics, it's very clear that colleagues on the Hill will be helping Stephen Handy with this write-in campaign, and that actually can throw a lot of weight behind a candidate. To have other lawmakers very vocally, very publicly endorsing and supporting a candidate can swing a race easily. Whether it's enough to swing a race for a write-in candidate like Handy, we'll see. But most lawmakers have made it known they are not excited to have Trevor Lee join their ranks. So they'll probably be out, at least in Davis County, supporting this write-in campaign. It'll be interesting to see. Again, this is something kind of untested here in Utah. An popular incumbent Republican mounting a write-in campaign after he chose not to collect signatures to get on the ballot and was ousted by Davis County Republican delegates in the spring. He's going to appeal to rank-and-file registered Republicans as a write-in candidate in this general election. And, we'll have a first test of whether something like this actually can happen in Utah. Check it out. I've linked to some of the coverage and remarks from both of the candidates in this race, and we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People right after this.
On the next Handle on the Law.
Can I sue an ex-husband after he's dead?
How much money are we talking about, Bree?
$25,000.
Okay, well.
A lot of money.
Those pesky dead people, they just don't go away, do they? No,
yeah,
you can't. And you know why? And you know why he can't be sued?
Why?
Because he's dead. That's why. And they're very difficult to serve because you sort of have to put it in their hands.
It's Handle on the Law, Saturdays from 1 to 4 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
He won't come. He's too busy.
Jenny, of course he'll come.
Happy birthday!
Dad!
I know. You guys didn't think I'd make it, but come on. Could I really miss my son's birthday? Here you go, Dan.
Thanks, Dad. But today's Jenny's birthday.
Give me that. Happy birthday, Jenny!
Need to get closer to your family?
Nice football, Dad.
Give your family everything. Give them your time. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
What makes essential workers essential?
We keep where you work and live clean and safe.
We harvest fresh produce for your families to eat.
We help you heal when you're sick.
Essential workers help our nation run. You're in every corner of our country and come from all over the globe. I'm Marty Walsh. The Wage and Hour Division at the Department of Labor helps ensure you receive the essential protections you deserve. Visit our website or call 866-4US-WAGE.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Labor.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go! Almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Last week we got news that judge, not yet federal, it might go there, but a judge here in Utah, district judge here in Utah, had allowed the Better Boundaries lawsuit against last year's redistricting maps go forward. Short version of this, for those who haven't followed, this is the same group that ran the ballot initiative successfully, got voters to approve a ballot initiative creating an independent redistricting commission that lawmakers then completely and 100% ignored in the redistricting process last year, tossed out their map recommendations, despite the fact that former Congressman Bishop was on the committee, former State Senator Lyle Hilliard was on the committee. Legislators just completely ignored their recommendations and surprisingly, once again, found these maps under the couch cushions that they'd probably had all along. There's some obvious gerrymandering in the congressional districts, is the claim of a lawsuit mounted by Better Boundaries and with the help of campaign legal attorneys. Campaign legal attorneys are sort of good government watchdog litigants. They sue when they believe a state or federal government entity has overstepped and walked on taxpayers' rights. And that is their argument in this case, that the Utah lawmakers, ignoring the recommendations of the voter-created independent commission and drawing their own maps and then having those maps look as, honestly, as gerrymandered as they do, this is unconstitutional, the argument is. So a judge heard an argument from the state last week, the state asking for that to be thrown out. The state's argument was, look, lawmakers are constitutionally bound to pass redistricting maps every 10 years. That part's true. It's a constitutional mandate. They don't get a choice. How they go about drawing the maps, though, is not spelled out in the state constitution, the judge said. And so he said the state's argument was weak and that the state was asking that the lawsuit be thrown out because it's the authority of the state legislature defined in the Constitution to do this, to redistrict the state each 10 years. Judge said, yeah, but it doesn't say that you should ignore expert advice. It doesn't say that you should ignore an independent committee that voters wanted to be a part of this process. It doesn't mean that you can justify that what's jokingly referred to now as the Four Corners area of Salt Lake County, where all 4 congressional districts meet at a single intersection in Salt Lake County that also happens to be the poorer side of town. The judge said, look, there is plenty of evidence here that there is, and I quote, harm to voters in your maps. the case will move forward. But what does that mean? Well, two attorneys with Better Boundaries actually hosted a little temporary podcast. This isn't something you can expect an episode from each week, called the Better Boundaries Podcast. It'd been dormant for a while, but attorneys John Gabber and Hayden Johnson from Campaign Legal Team spoke to that. Here's what the judge's ruling last week means, according to the attorneys who are heading up the lawsuit itself.
And that's the fact that the voters of Utah adopted Proposition 4, which both set up a commission process, but also importantly set standards to prohibit partisan gerrymandering and provided for a legal cause of action to challenge it. And as the judge, as we pointed out in our briefing, and as the judge recognized in her decision declining to stay the case, regardless of what happens in North Carolina, that claim will remain. And so it doesn't make sense to put the case on hold, both for that reason and because the North Carolina case will probably lose. It would go against 100 years of precedent from the Supreme Court to say that state courts can't enforce their own constitution and state law against their legislature. So, it was a big win that the case gets to proceed forward and will not be put on ice for the next year.
Yeah, very excellent news earlier this week. We were happy to hear that. And for our listeners, we're going to do a deep dive into that North Carolina case in a later episode, so look for that.
That, again, is just a bit from the Better Boundaries podcast. Why are they talking about North Carolina? Well, as Hayden explained, the North Carolina case was something they were considering sort of a bellwether. And it's likely that case will fall as their challenge is different. They're challenging in North Carolina those who are accusing the state of gerrymandering, which they did as well. And this isn't a red or blue state thing. I get it. Republicans and Democrats in power do this. It's just unfortunate they do. The North Carolina case, the litigants, the challengers are likely to fail because their challenge is that the state can't do it alone. They need to work with an independent committee. Constitutionally in North Carolina, that's not spelled out. So they're likely going to lose. But the good news is as that was happening, the judge said, I don't feel the same way about the challenge to Utah's redistricting maps. And again, the judge said, I feel like there's evidence of harm to voters in these maps. I feel like the state constitution, while mandating the legislature do this every 10 years, it doesn't mandate how it's done. And the judge said it's clear voters had an idea of how they wanted it done with the Proposition 4, which passed in 2018. Lawmakers chose to ignore that completely this year. The judge said to the Attorney General's office, hoping to have the lawsuit tossed, the judge said, nothing doing. This one moves forward. So a couple months we'll actually get to see how the arguments are presented, and a couple months after that we'll find out if the courts toss the maps passed by lawmakers last fall. Just an update there on the Better Boundaries lawsuit. If you want to read more, I've linked to some of the coverage on our Facebook page. And we'll be back with more of For the People right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:33. The news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. Firefighters were called out to help rescue two stranded window washers at Utah State University. The two employees were using a boom truck today to clean outside windows of the John M. Huntsman School of Business building. Logan City Battalion Chief Josh Francis said the boom truck broke a hydraulic line, leaving the window washer stuck on the side of the building. Firefighters used their ladder truck to reach the cleaners and pull them out of the baskets. Francis said it was a pretty simple mission and took only about 5 minutes once they arrived on scene. Once firefighters had the employees safely on the ground, repair crews were able to retract the boom arm. Francis said the window washers were fine. No injuries were reported. Recently, Cache County Assessor Kathleen Howell announced her retirement. She will leave her post on September 6th. She was a guest on KVNU's For the People program last week and told host Jason Williams that it is the right time for her to retire. She mentioned that she has been there 46 years, 32 years as assessor, And she said it's been a wonderful place to be, and she's enjoyed serving the citizens of Cache Valley for all of these years, and really thankful that she could do this job. With inflation and high property taxes, on another matter, Hal was asked what the process is if someone wants to appeal the assessed value of their property.
So they can file an appeal. They actually file it with the county auditor's office. The auditor is the clerk of the board, so they're keeping track of all the paperwork and taking it in. And then that information is passed on to us. And the taxpayer has to present some evidence with their paperwork to show that the value that the assessors come up with is incorrect. It might be they just purchased it really close to the lien date. They may have just had it refinanced.
Or Hal explained that someone may have a neighbor whose home is identical, but she stressed again that some evidence needs to be presented as to what the property owner believes the value is. She was asked that if it was within her power, what was one thing she would have the Utah Legislature do that would make the whole process easier and better for everyone.
I know exactly what it would be, and it would be disclosure. I'm not necessarily a fan of telling people what I pay for things. I believe that's my business.
Sure.
But because the law requires that we appraise properties at that value, it makes it really difficult, not just for the assessor's office, but for the citizens to get information in the appeal process. How are they supposed to come up with those values? They don't know what it is either because it's not readily available.
Howell said Utah is one of 7 states that does not have a disclosure law where those values, the purchase price, is disclosed. A recent study of 12,876 school districts across the country examined average household income and expenditures for public elementary and secondary schools per pupil to find which states and districts were the most equitable. The Wallet Hub research found that as a state, Utah has the 20th most equitable school districts in the U.S. overall, while Idaho is ranked 40th, but some districts within the states rank better than others. 2 districts in northern Utah did not fare well based on how much money is spent on students versus the average household income in that district. The Rich School District ranked 38 out of 41 districts in Utah. The Logan City School District, meanwhile, ranked just ahead of Rich at 37th, with low expenditures on students and lower income. The Cache County School District is ranked 14th in Utah with per-pupil expenditures, less than Logan's, but the average community income is nearly double. And the Box Elder School District ranked 25th in the state. KBNU News Time is 5:38.
It's a busy time of year with a change of seasons from summer to fall. And with kids back in school, check out UNI Furniture student desks and chairs to give them a dedicated place to study. If you want a better night's sleep, UNI can help you. They feature the full line of Maloof and therapeutic mattresses, from inner spring to hybrid to the popular foam mattresses, including gel-infused memory foam. And if you sleep hot, have UNI show you the copper memory foam mattress that'll keep you cool. Helping furnish your home for over 90 years. There's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Clear tonight, mid-50s, sunny, hot, mid-90s. Tomorrow it's been to 92. It's 90 right now at KBNU. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Believe it or not, a high-quality furnace air filter will reduce the amount of dust and pollen carelessly floating around in your home. John at the Duck Hunter says always buy a higher quality air filter. If you can see through a filter, you probably should pass on it. If you're not sure about which furnace air filter to buy, give John a call. He only carries the highest quality, which will reduce the dust and pollen in your home. For a free consultation, call the Duck Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duck Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duck Hunter.
Welcome back to KBNU's For the People. Recently had a chance to talk with Cache County Clerk and Auditor, people forget that's part of the job title, Jess Bradfield, about some recent audits conducted. As I said at the start of the hour, the public, taxpayers, never unhappy about audits, but sometimes they can cause controversy within governing bodies, power structures that feel challenged by an audit, sometimes resist, and it's unfortunate because audits are good for everyone involved always. Not just accountability and transparency, that's important, but also efficiency, finding out where things can be done differently that could save taxpayers money. There's so many reasons that audits are important, and they haven't happened for decades in Cache County. So the last 2 years, seeing the county auditor, with the support of the state auditor, by the way, John Dougal, getting more aggressive about these is really encouraging. But there's some confusion out there about what audits can and can't be done. There have been public requests on Facebook groups and county pages saying, can we get an audit of this? Why don't we have an audit of that? I would love to see. And the problem is, in statute, the legislature sort of lays out a very, very specific, and I don't know why people have asked, but laid out a very specific structure to audits, which audits can be conducted at the county level or state level or city level or legislative level. They have their reasons, and again, I don't know what they are, but we had a chance to talk with Cache County Clerk and Jess Bradfield about the different types of audits and what it is exactly that his office can do to bring more transparency and accountability to Cache County government.
That's right. So there's two main types of audits, and when we were putting together our audits, we actually looked to the state to the state auditor's office in how they prepare some of theirs, because they do a really good job. Mm-hmm. Dougal, I have to say, has done a fantastic job of making things publicly available. He's
one of my favorite elected officials right now. Just been so aggressive about audits and transparency.
Yeah,
I love it.
So there's two types. The first type is just your standard financial services audit, where you're examining the finances of an office, of a department, of an entity, and saying, is there any fraud, waste, or abuse within the departments and their finances? And that's pretty straightforward, right? You're looking at it and you're saying, hey, does this match up? Can I see receipts? Can I see this? We did that, but we also included a performance audit. Now, a lot of people won't be familiar with performance audits, and we have very strict guidelines to ensure the balance of powers when it comes to performance audits. It has to be directed under the supervision of a legislative body or the county executive. And so in this case, we acted under the county executive's authority, and he provided the guidance and direction.
Okay.
And so that happens when you go in, and instead of just examining the books, you look at the integrity of the financial system. You look at the accuracy. You look at the controls. So instead of just the finances, what are the controls that guide them? The code that guides the efficiency and operational performance, and it's fairly open-ended. But that's kind of where we try to stop.
Okay.
Is on those items, and this one addressed specifically finances, controls, and code.
That is so. Which is more difficult? I would assume the performance audit is because first you have to decide what you're calling performance, right?
Exactly.
That's interesting.
So, I mean, I would say that a performance audit, because a lot of financial individuals, what I would say, people who are adept at financial matters, they don't like to get outside of that box and then start to say, well, I believe this or this or this. So that's why we have a very multifaceted staff. So we contract with a certified fraud examiner when it comes to our performance audits, and we contract with a certified public accountant when it comes to financial matters. And so this was conducted by our certified fraud examiner, and she just did an amazing job. We audited adherence to federal, state, and county laws and codes. We went through multiple years of finances. It's 36 pages, so it's not light reading, I would say, but we made sure to put in, whenever there's financial issues discussed, we put in charts and graphs and pictures and
well, and they're amazing to see, because to see it broken down this way, you really get a picture of where things are going and the trends, when it's visualized like this. And that's and one of the trends that really stands out is this is a pretty financially on sure footing nonprofit organization that the county's running here.
That's right.
That's good news.
Yeah, they do an amazing job. They operate within a budget that's always difficult because with inflation going crazy, I have to say they've done an amazing job of operating within their costs and their budget, and they'll probably need more funding in the future, as most things do. But I have to say they have done such an amazing job of managing within their lane that it's. I encourage everyone to go and take a look at how well they've done at doing that. And so
that is so cool to see, especially when you consider that, again, this is an organization they've had some changes of leadership over the years. They've had the needs and services they provide are constantly changing, and I love that the recommendations are all, I wouldn't call these not big deals. Some of these maybe would be difficult, but they're not scandals. They're not, huge holes in record keeping or where did that money go type recommendations. They're recommendations like you noticed in the performance audit that there are certain things in the way the property owned by the nonprofit, their location is insured, that if they made some minor changes would really avoid some potential problems in the future. That's such a big deal to spot in advance, right?
Yeah, and so that's why people say, well, you're not doing a strictly performance or financial audit. And we say, yeah, but these issues have huge financial implications on the county.
Yeah.
If you don't have agreements and policies and deeds and insurance set up correctly, and then you get sued, you could set the county back millions of dollars, and that they would be on the hook for. And so this identified some of those issues, and it provides recommendations. In fact, we went as far as to provide the potential code that the county legislative body could simply insert into the code and change it to make it compliant with federal, state laws.
It's interesting because, again, that's a really big deal that was spotted in a performance audit that would be, this is a simple change. This is paperwork, to change the way things are set up and to deal with an issue like how insurance coverage is set up or ownership is set up of property for the county's nonprofit. Changing the names on some paperwork that the county would then file with itself, like the rest of us do, it would avoid something that could cost millions of dollars in the future.
Yeah.
That's very, to me, that's why audits are amazing.
And let me give one other cool thing about this, is that if you go in and actually take a look at the audit, number one, we made it as user-friendly as possible. So,
sure.
So we're not catering, we're catering to the council, we're catering to the executive as far as trying to make sure that this is understandable and useful and beneficial, as well as that department. But this is an elected office, and the people the people deserve to know what's happening with their tax funding. And so my goal was to make this as easily understandable to the layperson as possible. So if you go in and take a look at the PDF that's online on our website, cashcounty.org/clerk, and then click on audits, and then you'll click on internal audits. If you click on the actual report and you go to the table of contents, you can find any section within just one click.
That's very cool.
That's something that when you're reading this goes up to 300 pages with the appendix.
Oh, yeah.
Because we wanted people to know our process of the auditor as we examine these documents and we examine the financials. What was our thought process as we went through this? So we include the questions that we asked and the responses.
Speaking again with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield, and stay tuned on the other side, find out what the audits revealed and why, again, they're very good for local governments. More of For the People right after this.
Have you thought about your furnace lately? Of course not. It's hot outside. Now's a great time to start thinking about replacing it or having it serviced for fall and winter. Advanced Heating and Air will help you get some of the industry's best rebates on a new high-efficient York furnace installed in your home. Or one of Advanced Heating and Air's service professionals can service your furnace for the upcoming winter season. Call today, 752-7272, or schedule a free estimate at advancedheating-ac.com. York, install confidence.
This is Detective Johnson from the Logan City Police Department. Scams in our community are on the rise and innocent victims are losing thousands of dollars. These scams are coming in the form of phony phone calls claiming to be from government organizations or legitimate businesses. They are also circulating on social media and emails. Almost all of these scams are asking for payment through gift cards that are almost impossible to track. No legitimate business or organization uses gift cards as currency. If you receive a scam of this nature, do not give the scammers any information and immediately call police. Remember, pause, stop, call a cop.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Revisiting some time we spent recently with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield. Some confusion out there over what types of audits the county clerk and auditor can do. The state defines that. Some audits are under the jurisdiction, if you will, of the state auditor. Others under the legislature themselves. Others under county and city governments. So breaking down what can and can't be done by the clerk and auditor after some public requests for audits have made the rounds in Facebook groups and on county pages. But so what did these recent audits reveal about the county? What were the recommendations made by the county clerk and auditor in these audits that could bring efficiency and save taxpayers money to county government? Well, Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield explained that these are just recommendations. The decision on what to do with them is not up to his office. Sure.
But the change depends upon the council. And the biggest issue here that we're seeing is with county code and the need to update to make it match reality, operational reality, as well as mirror some of the needed change to match code or state code.
I'd love to see that project undertaken.
Yeah,
I don't know if you would. That would be quite a headache for you in your office, right? But
well, the great thing is that we take these recommendations and then give them to legal, and then legal has their own analysts who will then review to make sure, double check, and then they would take it and present it to council. And so all of these checks and balances. That's why we also have the elected attorney in a county government, so that we all work together.
Yeah.
And I have to say, John Luthi has been fantastic to work with. He knows his law. So one of these things, I'll just start with number one, deeds and insurance issues. So if you don't know who actually owns or a property or who has coverage on a property, then you're asking for trouble when it comes time for issues and problems. And so we offer solutions on how to fix that, and we answer who should take insurance coverage for specific sections of various properties and adjacent properties.
Makes sense.
We have another finding that talks about reciprocal parking license agreements. Now, you would never say, like, it's average person is not like, oh, tell me about your parking agreement.
That's right. Doesn't come up a lot in the average day for most people.
But when it comes to a business or an entity or a government, these types of issues are critical. Who owns the parking lot and who has license to use a parking lot? Because let's just say you think that you have use to a parking lot for years and years and years, and then that entity or that business says, you know what, you've been parking on my ground for the past 30 years, get off. Then you're suddenly left with 30 less parking spaces, and you have to make that up. And so we go into detail of that, of, hey, we don't have we don't have reciprocal parking agreements. We really need to get those in order.
Sure.
So then we have fund deposit receipting. And here's the cool one on this. they're out of compliance because they're over-documenting, and that is the best finding
That's what you want to hear, right? It's like, hey, you could dial the transparency down a little bit. You're overshooting.
You're doing too much.
That honestly, and all the people I've met with the senior center and the board over the years, I'm not surprised to hear that. These have all been people who took it so seriously and wanted to succeed, so much that they've poured their hearts into this. And yeah, that is good news to hear that they've been over-dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Yeah, it was one of the more enjoyable findings that we had found. We have updated policies and procedures manual findings that the policies and procedures of the office are out of date. They just need to be updated to match either county policy or state code, and that can become an issue because if you think you're compliant and you're following departmental policy or departmental rules, and then you're actually out of compliance with the county policy,
that makes sense.
Or vice versa, and you don't actually know which one you're supposed to be following in at that given time, that becomes an issue for employees. And so that's one that we just protect our employees, and we protect the entity of Cache County. Cache County.
In a lot of important ways, because we're talking, for most people listening, that's probably the most important would be, saving taxpayer money, making government more efficient. Audits are really good at both. In a situation like this where you didn't find major flaws, you found actually an overabundance of caution on the paperwork and finance side of things. The biggest recommendation there is, maybe step it back a little bit because then you have some more time for some other things and still be in compliance. Again, minor recommendations, but again, as I said earlier, flipping through this, Jess, is if you just mentally adding some of this up in my head and guessing at cost savings here and there, if every one of these recommendations were implemented by the council and once adopted and put into practice by the various entities, you're talking a lot of savings in time, in money, in legal liability.
Yeah, and over time, issues become more complicated. I think that's something, the time value of money, well, there's a value of time as well.
Sure.
That issues become more costly, more complicated. And so what we're trying to do is say, here's the findings, here's what their potential risks are and their costs are, and if you solve them now, we will never have to address those. Well, I shouldn't say never, but we should not have to address them at the scale that we may have to.
Again, that was a conversation we had with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield. If you'd like to hear the entire interview, we spent the full hour with him that day. You can grab the podcast, which is available at the Podcastics service. Simply search Podcastics and the words KVN News for the People. You'll find that, be able to subscribe, and make sure you never miss an episode. The whole conversation was fascinating to me, but the best news, I think, from the whole thing is that they're not going to stop. The Cache County Clerk and Auditor, they're going to keep going with these audits, and I think it's a really, really good thing to keep this kind of thing going regularly. It's not. I know some elected officials actually bristle at this because they feel like they're being accused in some way because of bad things that might be found, but. Usually what audits find is that there's just, a whole bunch of money could be saved here. A whole bunch of efficiency can be found here. Sometimes, sure, there's malfeasance that is discovered or corruption even. It's happened in legislative audits of even universities before, but that doesn't have to be what the findings reveal. In fact, I think the odds of audits revealing corruption or malfeasance go down the more regularly you're doing the audits in the first place. I think it's one of the ironies of audits. So that is our time for today. I appreciate everyone tuning in, and I hope you'll be back with us tomorrow. The Utah Department of Workforce Services has a big announcement. They'll be joining us on the show tomorrow to talk about a statewide virtual job fair, but something a little different about this one. This one is intended to really focus on remote work from home opportunities with the state. That's tomorrow on the program. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
News and talk around the clock.
I listen to you all the time.
News Talk KVNU Logan, 610 AM at 102.1 FM.